Tasman. But since then, there's been lots of change, not only in the world, but also in his life as he's moved to Western Australia as the CEO of the Western Force as well. If you want to know about Tony before the Western Force, I'll put a link down below to that interview so you can go and have a chat about that. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the show. And how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having us.
Oh, pleasure. So after over 7 years with with Tasman as the CEO there, you took the move over to the Western Force in Western Australia. I guess you were interviewing probably around sort of Christmas time for your start in February. So at that time, did you kind of know what the future for the Force would hold? Did you know if it was going to be a Super Rugby role you were taking or a Global Rapid Rugby role? I mean, what's kind of how much uncertainty, I guess, was there in taking the role?
Oh, there's no uncertainty. It was pretty clear what the role was. To be honest, I wasn't looking for a role. I was very comfortable in Tasman. We just completed the two-peat. The planning was underway for a three-peat. We secured 39 of our players, and we were moving forward. So I got a phone call out of the blue saying that people wanted to speak to me about the opportunity at the Western Force. Thought, give me 48 hours thinking about it. Did I want to uproot my family? We had a great lifestyle and really enjoyed everything to do with the top of the South and the staff there, but friends that will be friends for life. But over the weekend, we thought about it. Great believer in every chief executive any longer than 7 years. And I was coming up to an 8th year is one day too many, whether it's rugby or business. So we took it from there, had a good chat to Andrew Forrest, who clearly outlined his passion for rugby, Andrew and Nicola and the whole family, passionate rugby supporters, what they wanted to try and achieve. And it was a very easy decision in the end. Uprooting the family was probably the hardest one. We didn't realise the impact it would have on our 9-year-old daughter, but we are living on the beach in Cottesloe, 8-minute drive to work, couple-minute walk for her to school, so life's pretty good.
Yeah, it can take little ones a little while to settle in. Having got two young daughters myself, we've perhaps moved them around a bit too much. But hey, it's, as someone who lived in three different countries before the age of 10, it's also a great experience as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, did I know if it was going to be a super team? I think that was your question.
Yeah.
Haven't quite get so. At that stage, it definitely was a super team. I wouldn't have come for anything else. It was a super team with the desire to become the best in Australia, the best in New Zealand. You want to be the best club in the world. So that was the three things he left me. And the fourth thing is to grow an academy program, which is the best in Australia and in NZ, and produce the best local talent. So nothing was more exciting than that. So we quickly made the decision. We managed to keep it a secret. Rugby's got loose lips, and Wayne Young, the chairman of Tasman, he was the only one that knew. And I told a close friend of mine, Shane Drummond, who owns the Highlanders, and that was it. And we kept it a secret for close to 3 weeks before it was announced. And within 3 weeks after that, I was in Perth in isolation.
Wow. Yes, I mean, moving during COVID can't have been easy, but yeah, it's one of those challenges you've got to do. And if you get the right people around you, the right moving companies, that can also help. For people, just a quick idea as to kind of the history of the Western Force. Created in 2006, we're a Super Rugby side for 11 years before they got moved out of rugby at the end of 2017 in pretty acrimonious situation with Rugby Australia. Had 2 years of pretty much exhibition series as Andrew Forrest was trying to stand up the Global Rapid Rugby. And that was in 2018, 2019. So playing sides like Fiji, but also I think the Crusaders went over there, etc. 2020, it looked like the Global Rapid Rugby was on its way, was going to be launched, and then COVID hit, and unfortunately it got cancelled. And then at last moment, we got invited into Super Rugby AU and had a tough season of it in that first season, losing all the games coming last. before. And I guess, so you arrived at an organisation that had been through something like 5 different tournaments in 5 years. That means that the organisation would have been ramped up and ramped down and reorged pretty much every year for each one of those. The amount of uncertainty for structure would have been very high, and can cause anxiety, as can a new leader. Obviously, on the financial side, though, it was secure because of Andrew. But what kind of morale and I guess culture did you come into for say an organisation that's so used to, that's not had any certainty?
Yeah, so it's a damn good question, and I'm very fortunate in the 7 years at Tasman, we're able to over time build an incredible staff morale and a staff desire to be the best. We had a sort of mantra, top 4 under any criteria. So there was a real drive amongst the business. So it was with trepidation that one jumps on a plane, comes to halfway around the world to land in a place where you're just outlying a hell of a lot of uncertainty. But I walked in here on day one, and within an hour I knew I'd made the best decision of my life. Post the Tasman Mako, the staff were incredible. They were incredibly motivated. They were focused. They were invigorated. Some of the best talented sports staff that I've seen. And it was because Andrew had this idea of global rapid rugby and to play in Asia, take it to America, etc., etc. And it's with a sort of a smirk on my face at times when we sit down in meetings with Australian Rugby Union and NZR, where now that South Africa, unfortunately, has been given the heave-ho, that's probably where we're heading. And so Andrew was miles ahead of his times. From a Western Force perspective, we've got great relationships all through Asia. And obviously, the American relationships will grow over time. So very lucky to move into a great group of staff. As a group of players, last year we were definitely the cosmopolitan, barbarians type role. Matt Hodgson had done a great job in strengthening the squad to enable us to compete. And that's what we certainly did last year. We were very competitive against all the New Zealand teams, bar the Hurricanes that tailed us up, and the Australian group. You know, we're the only team to beat Queensland, so we were competitive. So lucky to have a great staff. We've restructured the staff. I think a lot of people wouldn't understand, but when I arrived here, we had 3 coaches. And I know you'll want to talk about the coaches later on, but you can't coach a super team with 3 coaches. That's all we had. So we're understaffed, undermanned at every level. So we've been very busy in the last 6 months is getting our structures right in the front office, writing a strategic plan, and our strategic plan is quite simple. In the community there, we want to have a community game that drives young, talented athletes to play the greatest game in the world, which is rugby. But our simple ambitions and visions is we're here to win, and we want to be the leading force. And we're here to win under any criteria, and we want to be the leading force under any criteria. So we're motivated by that, and we've gone through the business and taking it into a level where we'll have a coach, a high-performance team that'll be as good as anywhere in the country, and we've got a front office team which, as I said before, are quite outstanding.
Now, at Tasman, you own kind of the community game and the high performance game.
Yeah.
At the Force, it's a bit different, though, isn't it? That you don't own. You're not Western Australia Rugby or WA Rugby. They kind of own the community game. So how do you interact with those? And when you're talking about having that pathway, how well is or how good is that relationship?
It's an interesting question because previously Rugby WA owned the Force, and then the Force rolled back to Rugby Australia. Then Rugby Australia used that avenue to eject the team from the competition. And then Andrew and Nicola come in and spend $25 million investing in global rapid rugby to keep rugby alive in the West. And they're heavy sponsors through the Force of Rugby WA. So if I want to go and speak to Nathan Charles from Rugby WA, I only have to walk 4 metres and I'm there. So like everything, it's a bit of an arranged marriage at the moment. We're finding out what do we like about each other, what we don't like. It reminds me of time of the Marlborough Nelson thing, that that there's a little bit of politics involved and what we're trying to achieve. But I think from my perspective is that rugby in this part of the world is on a bit of a rise. The club rugby finals had 4,000 people there on Saturday to watch a club final, which is massive. I mean, in NZ and Nelson, if you've got 1,000 or 2,000 people to the club final, you're doing well. So 4,000 people there, most of them were there all day. If you want to know what a good day looks like, they run out of beer 4 times and had to get 2 extra pallets each time shipped out there. So it obviously says it was a good day. So rugby's in a healthy spirit. When I got the role here, I quickly made a decision that for us to be involved, our best part to work with Rugby WA is that we don't want to run the rugby development offices and we don't want to run club rugby. That's not our thing. And I'm thoroughly enjoying not having to do that because it was, sometimes a noose around your neck. How much success you had that way, you're always going to get nailed from the club rugby people. So it's a pleasure that I can go to club rugby on a Saturday and just watch it. But I employed Chris Goodman, who was in the Crusaders Academy, quite quickly, and he's been over here now for 4 weeks. And his job is he's the general manager of the Western Force Academy, and that pathway program goes basically from under 14s all the way to the Western Force, but main emphasis is on under 18s, 19s, our development team, and obviously the Western Force. So that's where I see the synergy and between the two.
Cool. Yeah, and being also not stepping on each other's toes a bit as well. But so does that mean that you're kind of running so will the academy effectively run the Western Australia sort of age group rep sides or not?
So our aim is that we'll run our own under 20s. So we'll run the under 20s and under 19s, and then Rugby WA would run under 18 and under 16 teams. But our coaches, our academy coaches, so we've just appointed Richard Kahui, Jeremy Thrush and Greg Holmes, all ex-internationals. In fact, it's quite funny, Holmes, he's just been called into the Wallaby team. So they are our academy coaches. It's quite amazing. You go down stairs and you get a young boy who's been in AFL all his life, and it's very unlikely you're going to get Nick Nack, the legendary ruckman from the Eagles, coming to something like this, and here is internationals helping these young boys. So we see that really crucial, and our academy staff and coaches and S&Cs and physios are knee deep in that space.
Yeah, congratulations to Greg Holmes on his call up. But yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. I think probably for him as well. So that's great. So Jeremy Thrush, Richard Kahui, obviously 2 Kiwis who I think a lot of us probably thought were just there on 1-year contracts and then would move on and, as you say, pull out Barbarians kind of style hiring. But it's good to see that they're actually embedding themselves in the local setup and are there for a bit longer than that. Then.
Yeah, well, I think Thrushy's been here for 5 years, so this is his 5th year coming up, and Kahui's on his 3rd year. It'll be interesting. I like to think that I can smell a coach out, and Leon and I brought Andrew Goodman, Shane Christie, Clark Dermody, Dan Perrin, Jimmy Marshall through with Tasman, and I think Kahui and Thrush, they smell like those guys. They look like, behave like coaches, and I think they'll be coaches here for a long time.
Fantastic news. On that front, you mentioned Global Rapid Rugby there. Now, obviously, the first season got cancelled. I don't think there's been any kind of official announcement as to whether it's cancelled or will be happening. Are you able to shed any light on that as to what the GRR might be?
So, what happened? Obviously, when COVID hit, the Australians Rugby Union invited the Force to participate, and then a TV deal was done with 5 super teams, which includes the Force. So that's what will be going on in the future. We've signed a participation agreement for the next 5 years with Rugby Australia, so we ain't going anywhere. Global Rapid Rugby is something that we own, something which is in the back of what we do, and at some stage, as we develop in the future, that competition may rear its head again. The that if you look at Australian rugby, the only thing I think it's lacking two things. It's lacking a second-tier rugby competition, which the Bunnings, I better not say Mitre 10 Cup, but the New Zealand NPC gives and is the difference why New Zealand's so strong, because it just throws up people every year from nowhere who quickly go on to be super players in All Blacks. We don't have that competition here. So I see that as something we'll have soon. And the other thing that competition does is develop coaches. And if you look at the New Zealand super coaches, every one of them has come through an NPC program. And currently our guys don't have the advantage of that. So I think it has a future. Where it sits, I think we'll just bed down into the Super Pacifica for the next couple of years, and we'll find out a spot for it.
Cool. Yeah. No, I was thinking that the window that the NRC used to take could be a useful window for it. Absolutely.
I'll get you to speak to Andy. I'll get you to speak to Andy Marinos and tell him your thoughts. Everyone is the same page here. We just got to try and work out how we can financially make it work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, you had teams from Malaysia, China, the Samoa, Fiji, all lined up and were ready to go for it. So yeah, it was, as you say, a couple of years ahead of its time as we look at Super Rugby Pacific that comes up next year. So you're talking there about NPC coaches, and you've hired a couple in Paul Tito and Mark Ozich into those kind of roles. How much? You mentioned that four coaches isn't enough for a Super Rugby franchise. How much beefing up has the Western Force required over the last sort of 6-8 months that it's been?
Yeah, so
again, also coaching. Sorry.
We had 3 coaches at the start of the year, and that's what we started with and finished with. So we did a external review. We hired Richard Smith. Those people who listen to your show, he was the GM of the Crusaders. Now he runs a high-performance group doing consulting work to sporting teams out of Christchurch. He did a fantastic review. You know, when you've done a good review is when Richard Carney comes up to you, British Lion, 15 years for Ireland, says that's the best review I've ever had in professional rugby. So he left us with 14 recommendations. 5 of them were confronting, 9 of them were easy. We've put all 14 in place, and one of the things was to develop a coaching group that would engage with the players, would give Tim Sampson, our head coach, the opportunity to be a head coach. So we sat down there, and also true to Andrew and Nicola's words ringing in my ear, showing a pathway for rugby WA coaches. So Dylan Parsons, 33-year-old, he's a young coach on the move. So he's been brought in to be the skills coach. So he's the 5th coach. And then we walk up from there. Mark Ozich, who everywhere he's gone, whether it's Southland boys, whether it was Hastings boys, he's had tasted success. And we've all known that Hawke's Bay is extremely talented and fertile ground for rugby players, and he's probably the first coach to go there and have sustained success, not only winning the Ranfurly Shield and then getting promoted, but probably the most important thing from my book, the style of rugby that they've played and the number of super players that have grown. So he went through a process. We decided not to advertise the jobs, that we'd go and headhunt. And we had a hit list of the attack coaches, and he ended up being top of that group. And we had people like Robbie Deans doing work behind the scenes for us, just to give us an idea of the people that we're talking to, et cetera. And so I didn't know Mark personally, but as the chief executive of Tasman, I'd met Jay, the chief executive of Hawke's Bay, lots of times, and he waxed lyrically. We based ourselves in Hawke's Bay for a week after the Hurricanes game and invited Mark in. He thought he was just coming in to watch. We were watching him, and we watched him carefully, and we thought he'd be a great fit. So that went from there. We decided that we needed to change a bit of the profile in our coaching group, especially in the forwards, and enable Greg Holmes and Jeremy Thrush to just concentrating on having their last year of rugby. all locks will want to call lineouts, and all props will want to tell you. And look carefully who was out there. We earmarked about 5 or 6, and we drilled down to 3 people, and then we interviewed all 3. And all 3 were from New Zealand. All 3 are either head coaches of teams in New Zealand or head forwards coach. But in the end, Paul just seemed the right fit for us. I think his personality will be good. He'll drive excellence. I know a lot of people that knew him. Marty Verco, ex-manager of Tasman, had taught him and worked with him. And obviously Michael Collins also gave him a good rap as a coach. So he went through the interview process. Think he's going to be a perfect fit. Then Nick Hensley's our defence coach. This will be his 3rd year in Super. He's a young 31-year-old. He's a person on the move. He reminds me of Shane Christie. Probably not Shane Christie's, how I would say. So Shane Christie is a hard taskmaster, and you're left to no doubt where you stand. He's probably not at that level yet, which is not a bad thing not to be. And then Tim gets the opportunity to be the head coach, drive the culture, drive the coaches. So we think we've got one of the best coaching groups going around. They're young, they're hungry, they complement each other. And then overseeing that is Matt Hodgson, who is a force player through and through, breathes and lives every part of what we do. Then behind the scenes there, we've managed to recruit and the S&C of the Melbourne Storm, which is absolutely brilliant. And we've managed to get Kurt Harrington, who was the Tasman and the Crusader Academy physio as well. So I think we've built up a pretty impressive high-performance group. Add to that, Chris Goodman running the academy. So pretty pleased with what we got.
Cool. I've interviewed Mark Ozich before. Folks, I'll put the link down below if you want to listen to him talking about rugby and his experiences in Hawke's Bay. I'll put that in the show notes. I guess the only kind of the criticism that could come this way is, as you say, it is a cosmopolitan squad. You've hired 3, at least. Well, it sounds like actually adding up sort of four people from the 4 or 5 people from New Zealand. I'll
just jump in there. There's 2 coaches from New Zealand. There's a physio. 1 out of 3 is from NZ. The S&C are all Australians, and Cosmopolitan Group. Yeah, that was for 2021. I think we've got all the best. We've managed to hook all the best young talent out of Australia over here for next year. So our team will be basically, they're either homegrown Perth boys coming home or the best young talent in Australia that we believe, and Matt, who drives that place, but believes. So we think next year we're very much an Australian-focused team. My job is to grow Wallabies and to grow Australian coaches, and opportunities coaching super teams don't come up that much, and we've got 3 Australians and 2 Kiwis in that group, so I'm comfortable where it is. And if you look at Paul Tito, he hasn't really been involved in rugby too much in New Zealand since 2007. Cardiff, Poe, he's had a little bit of work at Wellington this year and previously in the Naki. So we're very comfortable and we're very excited about our recruitment. It's got very much an Australian taste to it.
So players like Jordan Olafela's gone back to the UK. I think Rob Carney's is obviously back to Ireland as well. The Argentinian players, are they around for another year or
no, only the prop. Everyone else is, as I said before at the start, the idea of 2021 was to be able to show the Western force are here, and that's what we did, and that was great word of Matt and Tim and the team, and then from there was to build a team that we think that can serve Australian rugby with pride in the future, and that's what we're trying to do.
Cool. Okay, it's a bit quicker than I thought. I thought you might say over the next 5 years we will migrate across, but no, it's straight away next year. It'll be.
I think, Paul, the classic is that Wherever you go, when I was in Tasman, the job was to grow Crusaders players. They become Crusader players, that might help them to be All Blacks. The job over here is quite quickly. We want them to become Force players. We're here to win, so we want to win, and we want to grow Wallabies. Some stage, we've recruited Manasa out of the Crusaders on the right wing. We will bring the odd international player to assist us, as like all teams do. The Crusaders got the Argentinian captain, etc. But we want to grow Australian rugby players and Australian coaches. And I've got no doubt that Mark and Paul and Tim, in particular Tim and Nick, they've got great opportunities to climb the ladder within Australian rugby.
Fabulous. Some of the things that you said last time we had a chat was do what you do well. So what does you do? What does Western Australia do well? What the Force do well? How are you going to be? I guess what are the strengths you're going to be looking to grow there?
Yeah, damn good question. And it's really easy to answer in New Zealand, okay? And it's really easy to answer if you're at the Brumbies or you're at the Tars and you're at the Reds, because they're rugby heartlands. So we've got to be much more agile, and we've got to be a little bit smarter, if that's the right word, or innovative. So what we're going to do well is that we've recruited, I think, the best coaching team in Australian rugby for Super Rugby. I've got no doubt about that in my mind. And we're going to create the best academy in Australian rugby. I've got no doubt about that in my mind. We might not have the best talent to start with, but I'm confident they'll want to come here. And if we get that right, it'll quickly spread. This is a great place to live. There's great trainers. It's innovative. And we can, as I said in that vision of us, we're here to win. If we can struck up a couple of victories, you'll be really surprised when you see the crowds. You know, we had 16,000 and 15,000 into a 20,000 seater stadium last year against the Highlanders and the Chiefs. And we've got just under 9,000 members, paid up members of the Force, more than any other team in the competition. So those are things that we can do well, is give quality coaching, give a quality experience. I mean, it's amazing, you know, the players come over here and they might come from, you know, we've got a group, I think it's 12 locals, born and bred guys in our team, supplemented by, obviously, people from the eastern states and the odd player from the islands. And they come here and they can go and live in Scarborough Beach, where previously in Sydney they're living Parramatta and further out west. They're 5 minutes to training, they're 7 minutes to the beach. The shops are just down the road. So we can give them a life experience. And I always remember speaking to the Argentinian boys. They just couldn't get over the life experience. Their biggest issue living in Perth was they were so far from home. It was just hard to get home for them. So that's what we can do best. Magnificent coaching experience, good rugby experience. Match day here is like none other. All the super teams this year from Australia and NZ come to us and they just couldn't believe. So Andrew and Nicola want it to be the best match day experience that you go to. My daughter, who's 9, never been to a game in New Zealand in her life, had no interest in it, come to one game, didn't miss another. So there's a kid zone, which has got Ferris wheels, face painters, free food, you name it. It's got every concessionary ride you could possibly think of. The members are looked after royally with their own bars, etc., etc. So the match day experience is something else. The pre-match entertainment is of the highest quality, and so's the halftime entertainment. So we do those things well. If we can make the experience that good, and we can attract those young players early because they can see what the quality they're going to get from the coaching, then I think we'll be fine. So we just got to concentrate on that. The big one for me in 2022 is we're going to be the leading force on any criteria. We're here to win, and our coaching will drive those.
I'd say, yeah, the crowd or the support over there is second to none. It's definitely one of the best supported teams and has been throughout its time. So yeah, I think one of your strengths is clearly that community and that supporter base. You also mentioned last time that you're big on having kids curtain raisers, so we're going to see those as well. You can have the kids get to be on the pitch and get to sort of have that sort of thing, or is it more the bands and the music is
No. So you've had no one here. You must have been just reading what I was writing before you come on. So I was just writing the club. So we've been doing a couple of things this year. We've had kids curtain raisers, we had female curtain raisers, with the army versus the police, and we've also had club rugby games, so premier rugby games as curtain raisers. Great believer in that, and it's been a draw card. The club final one was not club final, the club premier game between Perth Bayswater and Wests. That actually had 5,000 people scanned in to watch that game, and that game kicked off at 5. So no, great believer in that. One of the best things over here that I've noticed is club rugby. While the standard sometimes is variable, but when all the forced players come back and start playing it, lifted exponentially. But the club experience, you go there, the sun's beating down on you. 9 times out of 10, you're on a rugby ground that overlooks the ocean. You can have a cold beer, or my wife, who's never come again, didn't really like club rugby. She loves it. She can have a nice glass of Sauvignon Blanc, and it's a very good experience. So we just want to make sure that those experiences carry on, and we're very much into that curtain raiser thing. I can remember playing for St Edmunds against Southern as a 10-year-old at Carisbrook and thinking to myself, geez, I'd love to play for Otago. And I think that's what you've got to put into your kids.
Final question then, in case you touched on it there, that you've had a women's curtain raiser. Will the Force be part of Super W, or have a women's side as well? How's that piece? Is that piece going to happen, and how's it going?
Yeah, so it's another damn good question. We're in Super W. We participated in this year. Unfortunately, in the middle of Super W, Sydney went into a fit over COVID. Well, actually, Sydney didn't. The rest of us did, and Sydney stood still. So we took our team out of that competition and brought them home. We thought it was too much of a risk, but we're in that competition. We've got some exciting stuff we're doing with Bay of Plenty. So we're going to work quite hard with Bay of Plenty this year, supplement our team a bit, so we have a bit of exchange between our girls going to playing for Bay of Plenty in the Farah Palmer Cup, and then obviously them coming back to us to play in that that Super W competition. So the women's game is very, very important. Sort of side note there, the Club Cottesloe, which is closest to my house, they actually won the men's final and the female final this year for the first time. So it's very healthy. Lot more to do. And as you know, in female sport, if you don't get it right, you can get exposed quite quickly. So we're very motivated for that. Give you an idea how important to us, it sits under Matt Hodgson, who's the director, the GM of rugby. So it sits underneath his portfolio. So it's an equal space with the men's as well as the females.
The rumours are that we'll have a women's Super Rugby competition in New Zealand next year. So we'll see how, if or not, we get a Trans-Tasman one and so forth. So. But yeah, if you hear anything, or if there's anything you can let us know on that side, we'd be much appreciated, so we can have the scoop. So I expect that's only going to grow and grow, which is great to see that you guys are fully invested in it as well. Thank you very much for your time, Tony. It's been great to hear about what's been happening over the last 6 to 8 months. It is that you've been in that in the role over there in Western Australia. I'll have to look at checking in again and seeing how you guys are progressing over there. It's exciting to see what can come out of Western Australia, as you say, with that piece of Global Rapid Rugby, if and when, or more when it rears its head again, and how I'll be definitely keeping an eye on that as well, and also challenging the rugby hotbeds of Sydney and Brisbane and Canberra in Super Rugby as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate your time and all the best for your show. It seems we're going from strength to strength.
Thank you.
And all my hope is that Hawke's Bay keep the shield for the next 2 weeks. So the the mighty Marco can go up there and take it home for the first time ever. So let's hope that happens.
Well, I can't make it to that game this weekend, but I am going to Waikato versus Canterbury, and also in the NPC, and also Bay of Plenty versus Otago in the Farrer Parkman Cup. So it's great to have rugby back here again after our lockdown as well. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Have a beer for me.